Hello and welcome to my MPA 545 Week 3 discussion board. My name is Brianna Reeves, and during this presentation I'm going to be talking about Henry Landsberger and an article written by him. On page 77 of our Collaborative Approaches to Resolving Conflict book, it's going to cite a study that was performed by Henry Landsberger. And in his study, he was able to give 5 characteristics of mediators in labor disputes for successful mediators. And those 5 characteristics are the appropriate sense of humor, the ability to act unobtrusively in conflict, the ability to create a perception of being with disputing parties and being concerned about all of their well-beings, persistence and patience, and then also specific knowledge about the subject area in which they are mediating. So after reading the article, I realized that the initial study was to discover whether psychological tests were capable of measuring the traits which were desirable for good mediators to have. The project was intended to test the psychological tests and see if the results who had these traits had a greater chances of being the good mediators, and if they had lesser of these traits, would that indicate that they were not as effective as the mediators. So the book talks about 5 characteristics that successful mediators have. However, I did realize that in the article they actually had 10 initially. And how that was determined was they would actually talk to different mediators and different agencies and find out what was a desirable trait in a mediator. And the additional 5 that they determined were a sense of being informal, the intent to inspire respect as an authority, the willingness to be a salesman when the situation requires it. What that is that's the willingness to put pressure on the different parties, control over feelings, always have a positive attitude. And those are the additional traits that the different mediators stated would be good for the mediators who are successful. Unfortunately, the study didn't really go as planned. They didn't get the answers that they really needed just because it could go very biased. So with somebody that could have a sense of humor with one party, it may not feel the same or have the same understanding with somebody else. So they really did not get the outcome that they wanted to with this study, and more of a black and white, like these are the exact characteristics that are needed in a successful mediator. So after doing some research and finding an article that also cited Henry Landsberger's initial journal, I found a journal written by Christopher Honeyman, and it's the 5 Elements of Mediation. And in his study, he suggests that mediation can be divided into 5 skill-based elements. And his 5 elements are investigation of the facts of the case, demonstrates of empathy towards the parties, invention in proposing solutions, persuasion in attempts to obtain a concession from the parties, and distraction from the parties to relieve tension throughout the mediation. And what he does is he summarizes that the results by suggesting that the best way to train and test new mediators is through focusing on these 5 key skills. My thoughts on this topic is I definitely think that having good characteristics provided by both of the articles is extremely important for mediators. Mostly because mediators demonstrate a wide range of skills for helping people resolve their conflicts. Most mediators believe that the success depends entirely on how well they do and they must be aware of all the additional factors when they're conducting the mediation session. Mediators are often, they serve as motivators as well. They encourage both parties to keep negotiating, um, or identify incentives or um, just different ways to come up with a yes. At the end of the day, the mediation is to resolve a conflict. So I do think both the articles gave great characteristics and elements to ensure that with each session there's a positive outcome. I do want to apologize. I noticed that my speakers were kind of glitchy during this presentation. Unfortunately, I couldn't find my normal headphones with the mic, and my AirPods are just, they don't sound very good. So thank you for sitting through this presentation.